10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. Hallelujah.
In recent years, I've been taking video game stories less and less seriously. Don't get me wrong, I'll still pay attention to a game's story, but unless I go in knowing that a game is trying to tell me one and tell it in an interesting way, I often feel like I'm witnessing the same worn-out patterns over and over again. Cutscene. Level. Villain with generic dialogue who wants to kill his own expendable goons. Level. Cutscene. Level. Cutscene. Ugh. Doesn't this method of telling you a story just feel totally worn out to you? I feel like this pattern doesn't really cater to a modern video game player, and there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, times have changed since the PS2 and PS3 days when everyone was really pushing the power of CG or motion capture animation. In those days, striving for the best graphics and most realistic animation was essentially an arms race. But today, advanced technology means that animation has really come a long way, and we are totally spoiled by that. Seeing cutscenes of eye-bleeding animation doesn't seem as impressive to the majority of people as it used to. Another reason is because in today's world, we just have far too many distractions, and our attention span is god-awful. But because of that, the modern cutscene isn't an opportunity for a gut-wrenching story moment, it's this.
I'm at Project the Upper.
Rico, there's a console further up this structure.
This place is great, you know? It's whimsical and fun.
What are you looking at, mother?
Cutscenes have become an opportunity to tune out. So telling your story entirely through cutscenes nowadays is the perfect way to make an unmemorable game. On another note, of course using just cutscenes doesn't work. People don't play games to sit there and watch a story unfold. Why do you think video game movies literally never perform well at the box office? Take interaction away and these stories aren't very believable. So what's the solution? Well, for me, the best video game stories are the ones that are incorporated into gameplay. Ones that, okay, might have a few cutscenes here and there, but the main storytelling, world building, character development, and plot all happen within interactive moments. BioShock Infinite, the 2013 sequel to BioShock and BioShock 2, is the perfect example of this. Infinite's design is every bit as good as the original BioShock, but where the original game focuses on level and gameplay design, Infinite focuses on telling you a mind-bending story. Here's how it does it.
Make yourself ready, Pilgrim. The bindings are there as a safeguard.
Firstly, Infinite isn't scared to put the player on rails. This doesn't have to be done by taking control away, but by giving the player an extremely clear, one-option pathway so that the developers and designers can control what they see. Most games try to steer away from being ultra-linear, because in this day and age, that marketing trope of no two playthroughs are the same is far too tempting to just slap all over the old box there, but no! Infinite limits the player's options completely for the first 3/4 of the first level. You don't get a gun, you don't have branching paths through levels, you've just got a guided tour through Parade Day in Colombia. Wait a minute. Does that mean that... No. It can't be. The first 45 minutes of BioShock Infinite is... a walking simulator?
That's impossible!
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
Extra, extra, read all about it!
When I say this game uses its world to tell its story, I mean it. Focusing on that first level again, did you realise that Booker doesn't even come into contact with another person from the moment that the Lutesses leave him on this dock until... let me see... he meets this guy. This guy. I'm sorry, sir, I don't think I got your name.
Heaven, friend. Or as close as we'll see till Judgment Day.
Okay. Point is, Booker isn't learning about Colombia by asking a bunch of people and going through dialogue trees. Instead, you learn about the world through props, set dressing, and the environment. Just through posters on the walls of levels, the player learns so much. Some of them set up serious dichotomies between very important characters. Some give you hints about what to expect throughout the game and the level you're playing, and some of them are just quite honestly poetic. These posters in the first lighthouse that set up the religious connotations of Colombia...
Oh yeah!
I'm gonna try not to get into spoilers because this game's ending is epic, but I can safely tell you that when playing this game through a second time, you notice its storytelling even more. You could honestly dissect sections of this game like you would a piece of high literature. There's symbolism, backstory, foreshadowing, Chekhov's gun, name a commonly used narrative technique from literature, and this game probably uses it. And notice again that none of this is boring. These are all beautiful pieces of art, and they all offer useful information to the player. You'll all know by this point how much I love Dishonored, but the posters in that game repeat after a couple of levels, and you're not really seeing anything new. It's cool world building, but seeing the Hound Pit's dogfight poster for the 7th time doesn't exactly grab your attention. But when you see the False Shepherd poster in this game, you're like, whoa! Is that Death? Death with a bunny? Well, I hope they're going someplace nice. These are also placed so intelligently. You can guarantee that if there's an important piece of artwork that you need to see in this game, you're not going to miss it because it'll be placed either on your way to an objective or somewhere that your attention will be directed to anyway. Environmental storytelling is brilliant, and it makes a game feel so much more alive. So much so that Irrational puts the player through a museum in this game to teach you about the villain's past, and you didn't even notice, you silly goose.
Love the prophet because he loves the sinner.
The original BioShock told its story using the environment and by using voice recordings. And being a sequel, wouldn't you know, this game carries on the use of that device too. I'd say that BioShock 1 maybe leans a little bit too heavily on audio clips, but that's true of any game that puts too much emphasis on any collectible of this kind. After reading a certain number of memos in a game that has tons of written collectibles, you start to not care. And the same is true of audio clips. In Infinite, however, voxophones are incorporated less frequently, and in places where you've got space and time to listen to them without being attacked or getting distracted. The point is, the games that use these storytelling tools best are the ones that use them in small doses.
Look at him, ladies. It's a crime someone doesn't get him a nice set of trunks.
If you've watched my video about how to make a great video game world, you'll know that a big part of making a place feel real is by using its people. In BioShock Infinite, you might hear a citizen of Columbia say something while you pass by and think nothing of it, but I guarantee you that what you hear in this first level especially is highly salient. If these citizens aren't saying something to set up characters you haven't met yet, they're letting you know as soon as you have arrived what type of place Columbia really is. Just from listening to passers-by, the player knows what type of people live in the city, what they all think of Comstock, their religious methods, their attitude to outsiders, their politics, who the Vox Populi are, and that they all care deeply about their reputations. The dynamic of Columbia is set up within your first 10 or 15 minutes of being there. And of course, this game using its people to tell its story doesn't just mean NPCs that you pass by once or twice. A big part of BioShock Infinite storytelling happens through the use of character development. If you don't know the difference between static and dynamic characters, essentially it boils down to this. A static character is someone who doesn't change throughout a story. The interest in their progression is the effect that they have on the people and the world around them. A dynamic character is someone who does change throughout a story. The interest here is in their arc, where they start, what they experience, and where they end up as a result. Infinite uses such a deep mix of these, but the way that they all interact and influence one another makes playing through the game all the more engaging. Alright, fine, you got me. BioShock Infinite does use some cutscenes. Occasionally control will get taken away from the player, but what's great about this game's cutscenes is that they are short and sweet. Not only that, but they pack a punch. Ken Levine knows that taking away control from the player is a cardinal sin, so when he does do it, he delivers a moment that actually truly matters. Furthermore, these cutscenes are integrated into the experience so that there is no stopgap between gameplay and cutscene. They all run perfectly into one another, so there's almost an illusion that the gameplay never really stops.
Do you hear that? It's music.
Go on,
Okay, I won't be long. I won't be long, Mr. DeWitt.
Last but certainly not least, BioShock Infinite doesn't rush anything. It isn't afraid to take its time to set things up, execute them, and leave the player stunned. This can be done in many ways, but Infinite specializes in creating mystery. From the second you pick up the controller in this game, you aren't given all the answers. In fact, quite the opposite. Irrational hides things from you, and they wrote the game so that you would be a little confused by it all. But creating intrigue, mystery, using the world, crafting levels that give you information in interesting ways, generating attachment to characters, all of this takes time. Infinite isn't afraid to take that time, and because of that, it is, in my opinion, one of the very best story games I have ever played. Thank you so much for watching through to the end. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video after me building it up for the longest time. Apologies again that it's been slow drips and drabs of content recently. I have been super busy with uni. Before you go, did you know that we now have our very own website? That's right, we finally got a place that collates everything we do, from videos to podcasts to written articles. In fact, we have one article on there already which recaps the very confusing story of BioShock Infinite. So head over to gamecoping.com to see it right now. Speaking of other content, we also have a monthly podcast called Podcoping, which you can listen to on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or any other major podcast provider. Our next episode will actually feature that handsome TikToker you saw earlier on in the video. Definitely check out Fraser's stuff. I kinda hate TikTok, but he's actually making really funny content over there. All the links, as always, are in the description. Thanks again so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more videos coming soon, but until then, stay healthy and tune in next time.